Miguel loved driving. The hum of the engine, the changing scenery, and the chance to meet new people made it more than just a job. It was freedom. He had fled El Salvador, seeking asylum from the gangs that threatened his family. The United States offered a haven, a place to rebuild. Months ago, the courts had granted him asylum, a golden ticket to a new life. But fear still clung to him like a shadow. Every flashing police light, every stern face, brought back the terror he had tried so hard to leave behind. He carried his asylum papers everywhere, a shield against the unknown. He knew others weren't so lucky. He heard stories of families torn apart, of people deported despite having lived here for years. He hoped his legal status would protect him, but doubt always lingered. What if it wasn't enough? What if they didn't believe him? The late afternoon sun cast long shadows as Miguel drove, his mind replaying those fearful what-if scenarios. He checked his rearview mirror, a habit born of anxiety. Suddenly, flashing lights filled his vision. A police car signaled him to pull over. His heart leaped into his throat. Just a routine stop, he told himself, trying to stay calm. He carefully pulled over to the side of the road, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for his wallet. He rolled down the window, offering a polite greeting to the officer. The officer asked for his license and registration. Miguel complied, handing over the documents with a forced smile. The officer glanced at them, then asked, "Do you have any other form of identification?" Miguel, remembering his asylum papers, reached for them. This was it, he thought, the moment of truth. Before Miguel could hand over the asylum papers, another car pulled up behind the police vehicle. Two men in plain clothes emerged, their faces grim. "I see," one of them announced, flashing a badge. Miguel's blood ran cold. He tried to explain, showing his state ID and driver's license. "I have asylum," he pleaded, his voice shaking. The ICE agents ignored his pleas. They demanded he step out of the car. Confusion swirled around him. The police officer seemed just as bewildered. Miguel tried to reason with them, but his words were lost in the growing tension. He felt trapped, his worst nightmare unfolding before his eyes. The world seemed to shrink, focusing only on the steely gazes of the ICE agents. He was sure this had to be some sort of mistake. In the back seat, Maya and David, Miguel's passengers, watched in stunned silence. They were on their way to a concert, excited for a night out. Now, they were witnessing something terrifying. Maya, a law student, felt a surge of anger. "This isn't right," she whispered to David. David, a graphic designer, instinctively reached for his phone. "We have to record this," he said, his voice barely audible. He started filming, capturing the scene unfolding before them. Maya joined in, filming from her own phone. They knew they had to document what was happening, to bear witness to the injustice. They felt helpless, but recording felt like the only thing they could do. The raw emotion of the moment, the fear in Miguel's eyes, the cold indifference of the ICE agents. It was all being captured on their phones. They hoped it would make a difference. "He's undocumented," one of the ICE agents stated firmly, his voice devoid of emotion. He pointed to Miguel. "We have reason to believe he's in violation of immigration law." Miguel desperately tried to show them his asylum papers, but they brushed them aside. "Those are not valid," the agent said dismissively. Maya and David, still recording, couldn't believe what they were hearing. They clearly saw Miguel offering proof of his legal status, yet the agents refused to acknowledge it. The agent's unwavering stance, his insistence that Miguel was undocumented despite the evidence, was chilling. It felt deliberate, a predetermined outcome regardless of the facts. David zoomed in on the agent's face, trying to capture the coldness in his eyes. Maya muttered, "This is insane." The ICE agents handcuffed Miguel, his wrists chafing against the cold metal. He was led to their car, his head bowed in shame. Maya and David continued to record, their hands shaking. They shouted questions at the agents, demanding to know why Miguel was being arrested, but their questions were ignored. Inside the ICE car, Miguel's fear intensified. He was driven to a detention center, a gray, imposing building that seemed to swallow hope. The processing was dehumanizing. Fingerprints, mugshots, and endless questions. He was stripped of his belongings, his asylum papers taken and filed away somewhere, unseen. He felt like a number, an anonymous figure lost in a system that didn't care about his story. Uncertainty gnawed at him. Would he ever see his family again? Would he be deported back to the dangers he had escaped? The weight of it all threatened to crush him. Maya and David immediately uploaded the videos to social media. Within hours, they went viral. The community erupted in outrage. Protests sprang up outside the IC detention center, demanding Miguel's release. People held signs that read "Justice for Miguel" and "Stop Racial Profiling." News outlets picked up the story, amplifying the message. Accusations of racial profiling against IC flooded social media. Many pointed to the fact that Miguel was a hardworking, legal resident with asylum status. Community leaders condemned ICE's actions, calling them a violation of human rights. Donations poured in to support Miguel's legal defense. The video became a symbol of the fight against unjust immigration policies, sparking a national conversation about the treatment of asylum seekers and the role of IC in local communities. The anger was palpable, a collective voice demanding justice. Enter Sofia Ramirez, a seasoned immigration lawyer known for her fierce advocacy. She took on Miguel's case pro bono, determined to fight for his freedom. Sofia knew the legal battle would be an uphill climb. ICE had built its case on the premise that Miguel was undocumented, and overturning that narrative would be challenging. The immediate priority was to prove Miguel's asylum status. Sofia faced bureaucratic hurdles, navigating a complex system to retrieve official documentation. The initial asylum papers Miguel possessed were not enough. She needed to access the official court records, a process that could take weeks. The clock was ticking. Miguel remained in detention, his hope dwindling with each passing day. Sofia knew she had to work fast, to cut through the red tape and expose the truth. The video evidence helped, but official confirmation was crucial. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Miguel, dressed in an ill-fitting jumpsuit, sat beside Sofia, his face etched with worry. The IC agents sat opposite them, their expressions unreadable. Sofia rose to present her case. She presented the official court documents, finally retrieved after days of relentless effort. A hush fell over the room as Sofia read the document aloud, stating clearly that Miguel had been granted asylum months ago. The judge looked at the ICE agents, a flicker of disbelief in his eyes. "Explain this," he demanded. The ICE agents stammered, claiming they were acting on information available to them at the time of the arrest. "That information is outdated," Sofia countered, her voice ringing with conviction. ICE was operating on false data. The courtroom gasped. Miguel looked up, a glimmer of hope flickering in his eyes. Was he finally going to be free? Sofia addressed the court, shifting the focus to the larger issue at hand. "This case highlights a critical flaw in our system," she stated. "Outdated digital records create a dangerous vulnerability for immigrants, particularly those seeking asylum." She explained that the delay in updating databases, the lack of seamless communication between agencies, and a reliance on flawed systems resulted in unjust detentions and deportations. Imagine fleeing persecution, seeking safety, and then being penalized because of a computer error, Sofia said, her voice filled with passion. "This isn't just about Miguel. It's about countless others who are at risk because of this digital divide." She argued for immediate reforms, for investment in modernizing immigration data management, and for greater accountability within ICE to ensure accurate and up-to-date information is used in enforcement actions. The courtroom listened intently, understanding the far-reaching implications of this systemic failure. Sofia then asked Miguel to speak. He hesitated, his voice trembling as he began to recount his story. He described the violence and fear he had experienced in El Salvador, the constant threat from gangs who demanded money and loyalty. He spoke of the agonizing decision to leave his family behind, knowing he might never see them again. He shared his struggles to learn English, to find work, to build a new life in a country that often felt hostile. He talked about the fear that haunted him every day, the fear of being sent back to the danger he had escaped. His voice cracked with emotion as he described the moment of his arrest, the humiliation and terror of being treated like a criminal despite having followed all the rules. "I just want to live in peace," he said, his words echoing in the silent courtroom. "Is that too much to ask?" The ICE representative defended the agency's actions, stating that the agents followed protocol based on the information available to them at the time. They argued that ICE agents have a duty to enforce immigration laws and that they acted in good faith based on the data in their systems. They maintained that Miguel's initial documents were insufficient and required further verification, which triggered the arrest. However, under intense questioning from the judge and Sophia, the representative struggled to explain why the agency's records were so outdated. Sophia pressed them on their verification procedures, highlighting the lack of a real-time system for checking immigration status. She pointed out that ICE's reliance on flawed data led to a clear violation of Miguel's rights. The agency's justification felt hollow, a bureaucratic excuse for a deeply flawed process. The courtroom remained skeptical. While Miguel was in detention, his family lived in constant fear. His wife, Elena, struggled to care for their two young children, working double shifts to make ends meet. The children, confused and scared, constantly asked for their father. Elena couldn't bring herself to explain the full extent of the situation, only telling them that Papa was away for work. Every knock on the door sent shivers down her spine. She worried that IC would come for her next, tearing her family apart. The potential consequences of Miguel's deportation loomed large: financial ruin, separation, and a return to the dangerous conditions they had fled. The emotional toll was immense, the uncertainty weighing heavily on their hearts. They felt helpless, trapped in a nightmare they couldn't escape. Elena prayed for a miracle, for Miguel's safe return, and for an end to their suffering. Miguel's story was not an isolated incident. It mirrored the experiences of countless immigrants facing similar challenges within the U.S. immigration system. His case became a symbol of the broader issues of immigration enforcement, racial profiling, and the systemic challenges faced by asylum seekers. Across the country, similar stories unfolded. Individuals with valid documentation being detained or deported due to bureaucratic errors, language barriers, or discriminatory practices. Advocates argued that these incidents revealed a pattern of injustice, fueled by anti-immigrant sentiment and a broken immigration system. The focus shifted beyond Miguel's individual case to examine the larger systemic problems that allowed such injustices to occur. His story fueled calls for comprehensive immigration reform, for greater oversight of ICE, and for a more humane approach to immigration enforcement. The protests grew, fueled by the collective frustration of communities across the nation. The judge delivered his verdict. Based on the evidence presented, it is clear that Mr. Miguel has been granted asylum and that IC acted on outdated and inaccurate information. Therefore, I order his immediate release. A collective sigh of relief swept through the courtroom. Miguel wept openly, embracing Sophia. He was free. The judge's ruling had significant implications. It set a precedent for future cases involving similar circumstances, highlighting the importance of accurate and up-to-date information in immigration enforcement. It also served as a rebuke to ICE, signaling that the agency would be held accountable for its errors. The ruling empowered other immigrants facing similar situations, giving them hope that justice could prevail. Sophia knew that this was just one battle in a larger war, but it was a significant victory nonetheless. Despite his legal victory, the trauma of the arrest lingered. Miguel struggled to shake off the fear and humiliation he had experienced. Every time he saw a police car, his heart would race. He found it difficult to trust law enforcement, questioning their motives and fearing another unjust encounter. He had nightmares about being deported, reliving the terror of the detention center. He felt a constant need to prove his worth, to justify his presence in the country. His sense of security was shattered, replaced by a deep-seated anxiety that threatened to consume him. He sought therapy to cope with the emotional scars, to regain a sense of control over his life, and to find peace after the storm. The road to recovery was long and arduous, but Miguel was determined to heal. Miguel's case amplified calls for meaningful immigration reform. Advocates demanded a complete overhaul of the system, one that prioritized human rights, due process, and accurate data management. They pushed for policies that would protect asylum seekers, streamline the asylum process, and prevent unjust detentions and deportations. A key focus was on improving data management systems, ensuring that information was accurate, up-to-date, and easily accessible across government agencies. There were also calls for increased accountability for ICE, demanding greater oversight of the agency's practices, stricter enforcement of protocols, and consequences for agents who violated individuals' rights. The momentum for change was building, fueled by Miguel's story and the countless others who had suffered similar injustices. People wanted a system that worked fairly for everyone, regardless of their immigration status. Maya and David were deeply affected by what they had witnessed. They felt a profound sense of guilt, wondering if they could have done more to help Miguel in that moment. They wrestled with the responsibility of having captured the event on video, knowing that their actions had played a significant role in bringing attention to his case. They both became vocal advocates for immigration reform, sharing their story and using their platforms to raise awareness. Maya volunteered at a local legal aid clinic, assisting immigrants with their cases. David used his graphic design skills to create informational materials and support advocacy campaigns. They were committed to fighting injustice, determined to ensure that no one else would have to endure what Miguel had gone through. Their lives had been forever changed, their perspectives broadened, and their commitment to social justice solidified. They had become allies in the fight. The outpouring of community support for Miguel and his family was overwhelming. Legal aid organizations offered free legal assistance, helping him navigate the complex immigration system. Advocacy groups organized fundraisers to cover his therapy costs and other expenses. Individuals volunteered to tutor his children, providing them with the academic support they needed. Neighbors brought meals to his family, offering comfort and companionship during a difficult time. Local businesses provided gift cards and discounts, easing the financial burden. The community rallied around Miguel, demonstrating their solidarity and compassion. This collective effort showed the power of human connection and the importance of standing up for those who are marginalized. It was a testament to the belief that everyone deserves a fair chance, regardless of their immigration status. Miguel was determined to rebuild his life and create a stable future for his family. He returned to driving, but he also enrolled in English classes to improve his language skills. He wanted to become a citizen, to fully participate in the American dream. He also became an advocate for immigrant rights, sharing his story at community events and speaking out against unjust immigration policies. He joined forces with advocacy groups, lending his voice to the movement for reform. He wanted to ensure that no one else would have to experience what he had gone through. He hoped that his experience could serve as a catalyst for change, inspiring others to stand up for justice and to fight for a more humane immigration system. Despite the trauma he had endured, Miguel remained hopeful, resilient, and committed to building a better future for himself and his community. Miguel's story serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of flawed immigration policies and the urgent need for reform. It underscores the importance of accurate records, fair treatment, and due process for all individuals, regardless of their immigration status. His experience highlights the vulnerability created by outdated data and the devastating consequences of unjust enforcement actions. We must demand accountability from those in power, advocating for policies that prioritize human rights and protect the most vulnerable among us. We must stand in solidarity with immigrants like Miguel, amplifying their voices and fighting for a more just and equitable society. Let Miguel's story inspire us to action, to challenge injustice, and to build a world where everyone has the opportunity to live in peace and security. Remember his name, remember his struggle, and let us work together to create a better future for all. The fight is not over.